Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined, as always, by the boy.
Hey.
And tonight, for the first time, we throw down the gauntlet.
This is where I would normally put, me doing pretend air horns noises, but I'm actually not ironically, but really excited for this. I think it's a cool concept, so...
It was inspired by a post by Shinsha Kaiser on the Who Would Win Reddit, where they put forward a challenge where you pick 4 fictional characters to go along with you to take on a gauntlet of...
Theirs was 10 rounds.
10 rounds? Was it 10?
It was 10.
13 rounds.
Oh, wow. Jeez, I must have edited a few out. Probably the boring ones
we
in the
ain't
middle.
got time for 13 rounds on this podcast. We're probably going to go along with it being 6.
So, we've made a few changes to the rules in that original post, which is fine, because it's been removed anyway, and you can't find it now.
It takes a lot of effort. I could probably link it if you really want.
But, here are the rules that we have going. It is 2 teams, one chosen by him, one chosen by me, of 4 fictional characters and ourselves. That was part of the original setup.
Yeah.
The idea is that each team has to go through the rounds of challenges with the following rules in place. Any physical equipment they have is replenished between each round. Any injuries they sustain that aren't fatal are healed between each round. But they can't take anything with them from one round to the next. They know the setup, they know why they're there, and each fictional character is in character. So if they wouldn't get along, they wouldn't get along. That's part of the challenge. You have to pick people who probably will get along.
Now, when we originally did this challenge for ourselves, just as a fun little thought exercise, I believe we counted equipment as in, mana.
Mana, resources, gadgets, power. If there's someone if you picked Iron Man and his battery and his various arc reactors would be refilled between each round.
So originally, also when this was done, it was just movies. For the sake of this being a repeat thing on the podcast,
it will be more than movies. Also, I like a lot more than movies.
Yeah, same. So
they have to get along at least well enough to complete the challenges.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will fail, obviously.
Yep. And it's basically an exercise in reasoning and talking back and forth. I mean, this was from the Who Would Win Reddit, so...
The idea for us is we're going head-to-head. We each pick 3 of the rounds and work on them to challenge both our team and the opposing team. And then the one who, at the end of the conversation, we've decided had the better showing gets a reward for the next round.
Yes. The way it's going to work is that anybody we put on our teams, we can't use again.
For the next round. Unless you win, then you get to pick one person from a previous round that you can use again.
Yeah. So it kind of disincentivizes throwing out with heavy hitters. Despite that...
I've gone with heavy hitters right out the gate, because this is mainly the group I used in that initial thought exercise with 1 sub.
Mine is entirely the group I used. And if it comes to a character who's got, multiple incarnations where a generalized this person doesn't...
Cut it.
Help.
If you went with Vin Diesel's character from the movie Triple X. Well, that's fine. He was only in, the one of those.
I think 2.
Oh, yeah, he was in 2. He was in Triple X 2. I don't know what they called it. But that's a small enough window that you can kind of get an idea of who Xander Cage is. But if they have a whole wealth of things, for instance, I have a character in my lineup who's in 15 books and 20 short stories, all at different points along the character's timeline.
For example, it would be a bad idea to just say Mario. Because what Mario can do in all of his different games is vastly different. And that's just Mario. It's not like his personality
So we're not
changes.
trying to nail down a specific, I want to pick Captain Marvel in issue 343 of her solo run. No, that's not. It's just a genre. Basically, to the person you're... if I'm picking someone, I have to be specific to his standard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it ends up being us vetoing it. This is really just a fun little creative exercise that harkens back to shit we did when we were younger.
With that said, let's talk about the teams.
Yes. Why don't you go first, my friend?
Okay. On my team, I have 2 superheroes and 2 wizards, because I am who I am as a person. First up for the superheroes is Captain America. I have gone high-tier, high-end Captain America. Captain America at the end of Endgame when he has...
We should edge in here real fast. Expect spoilers for all kinds of shit. Like, if you are spoiler-averse, you're worried about that stuff, just turn the sound of the podcast down, let it run in the background, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment about how you had to stop listening to the podcast because of spoilers for something. I'm sorry. Anyway, you were saying?
I've gone with Captain America at the end of Endgame when he is wielding Mjolnir and he has his shield.
Sounds good.
I know technically there isn't a point in the movie where he has both those things, but shut up.
I think at one point he throws one and then still has the other.
Yeah, that's true. And then
so that specific nanosecond.
But yeah, that's the version I'm going with. Because I honestly, part of it is it's the highest tier version of Cap. Mostly it's just that it's cool. I'm going to be honest.
All right. What else do you have?
Next up, I have the first wizard, Dumbledore, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, as of the Order of the Phoenix book. I went with Order of the Phoenix because as of the next book, he has been significantly nerfed. So, yeah. If you don't know who Dumbledore is, I can't help you. Next up, we're going with Spider-Man. I wanted to pick a very iconic Spider-Man-y Spider-Man, so I actually didn't go with the MCU version because as much as I love that version of Peter Parker, he's very much his own thing. I wanted a more classic interpretation, so I went with the PS4 game version of Spider-Man, probably around the end of the game when he's got good Spider-Man armor and cool gadgets and stuff. I'm going to be a little more vague on him in terms of what happens in the game, because this guy hasn't played it yet, and I want him to. So I'm trying not to spoil the entire plot. Although it's a Spider-Man game, you can sort of guess. And then, rounding out the list, I have, if you've listened to our various podcasts about my favorite things in fiction, or my favorite characters in fiction, you've probably guessed who the other wizard is. He also has a bunch of names. Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden, as of the end of his most recent novel, Skin Game.
And, of course, yourself.
Yeah, and me. I'm there, but at the same time, I'm a fat 30-year-old nerd who doesn't go outside. I'm not going to be contributing a bunch to this, except for meta-knowledge.
Yeah, you contribute knowledge. So my team, because in these thought exercises, he's always on my team because he's a little bit broken. We're going to Spawn. Early to middle series. I didn't want to go...
Before things get really high concept,
yeah, really complicated. I also have my Commander Shepard, which was a female renegade who romanced Garrus and used a sniper rifle. And I think I went with the tech line of powers.
You went half tech, half soldier, I believe.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly, but...
She's good with an Omni tool, good with a sniper rifle, and is Commander Shepard, so she fights like a lion and runs like a leopard or whatever the song is.
I've got Wolverine from X-Men Evolution specifically, because he is still Wolverine, but is relaxed a bit.
He is the relaxed Wolverine.
And then I have Donatello from late Archie Comics, because I like the Ninja Turtles, and I needed a tech guy, like a hardcore tech guy.
He does machines.
Yeah, that's probably his most skilled at weird technology, while also not having a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Socially or physically.
Yeah.
Do you have any issues with my selections, sir? Do you think they wouldn't get along?
I think we've hashed this out with this exact lineup before. I think your Commander Shepard and Spawn wouldn't get along to a certain extent because Spawn is kind of a loner. Like, he's kind of an eggy boy. Sure. And your Commander Shepard is very much going to want to be the leader, which I think Wolverine and Donatello are fine with. Like, Wolverine has to deal with Cyclops at the end of the day. Yeah. Your Shepard's going to be a big upgrade. And Donatello has to deal with Leonardo. So, again, your Shepard's going to be a pretty big upgrade.
In that same sense, Donatello has to deal with Raphael, so Wolverine's little mood things are not
The only one I think you're going to have a problem with is Spawn, because Spawn isn't really used to working with a team. But I feel like Shepard's dealt with enough eggy children by the point where you're going to use them.
Well, and Spawn has a fondness for incredibly badass women who descend from the sky.
So Shepard is really batting up his alley.
I also have no really big problems with your characters getting along. I think Dumbledore could potentially rub people a lot the wrong way.
I think, in the end of the day, Harry, Dresden, and Dumbledore will butt heads because because they're both wizards and they both like keeping secrets, and Dresden specifically doesn't like being the guy who doesn't know things. He likes being the guy who knows things and doesn't tell people. He has literally said it's like crack for wizards at one point. I think they would butt heads, but I think it would be a productive butting of heads. He's ultimately much nicer than the leader. Dumbledore's ultimately a much nicer dude than the leader of the wizards in Dresden's universe. And Dresden, at the end of the day, gets along with that guy when push comes to shove.
That's fair.
And Arthur Langtry's a shit bucket.
So, then we present the Gauntlet. We each chose 3, and it was decided that we should theme this first one around
the Infinity
Gauntlet. So we've picked a game, movie, book, series, etc. themed around each of the individual stones of the Gauntlet.
We've ordered them not quite like the original idea was to do his rounds then my rounds, but my first round is very much a fun round, so.
And his kind of first. Scope and difficulty other than that, so they kind of ended up to the end. So the first round is, and we'll go ahead and announce the rounds because we got to work this out now. The Time Stone, or Gem, if you prefer gems.
You know what? Let's do Stone. Just because, I know in comics it's the gems, but Stone is what I've heard a lot more recently because I've been watching the MCU movies.
Stones are gems.
Stones are gems. Gems are stones.
Yeah.
There you go. Not all stones are gems, but all gems are stones.
Anyway.
Not all great things are elephants. Anyway, the first round is the Time Stone, Time Gem. It is Back to the Future.
I kind of thought that's what you were going to say.
I went with a fun one. It was that or Hot Tub Time Machine, based on what was mentioned.
The first one?
Actually,
or the whole series?
Actually, that depends. The idea is you replace Marty McFly. You and your team replace Marty McFly in the DeLorean. Don't ask me how you all fit in there. Your job is to get the DeLorean working again and get back from the 50s to 1985 without making it so that the future has changed enough that Marty McFly doesn't exist.
Okay. I like that caveat. The second round is the Mind Stone. And I did actually a lot of research into what the stones actually do because I had some weird ones. To make sure I had a right grasp.
Got stuck with the Reality Stone.
So the Mind Stone is more about, mind control and winning the hearts and minds of people and great intelligence and things like that.
Yeah.
So I went with...
And if you're vision, shooting laser beams.
Laser beams is part of it, yes. Of pure mind power. Mind bullets! I went with Mass Effect, the first one. Which I cleared with my good friend the boy here because obviously Commander Shepard is from Mass Effect.
So we know at the end of the day that Commander Shepard can pull this off by herself effectively. But she did have a team, so the idea is, in
Your
his case...
team replaces Shepard's team.
Coincidentally, including Shepard for his team. But your team replaces Commander Shepard and the crew of the Normandy for the events. That is the crew that you take on missions, not the guy who runs the ship. Joker's still going to be there. Someone has to fly the ship. But for the events of Mass Effect 1. So that is to say, the Geth incursion, fighting Saren, saving, or, not saving, the Council.
And convincing them of stuff.
Convincing either the Council or somebody else that the Reapers are coming.
Yep.
And that Saren's a dickhead.
So he is. The Space Stone is the one I had next. I think the Mind Stone and the Space Stone are kind of interchangeable in terms of difficulty. You could make an argument either way. But in the original challenge, there was a late round contender that knocked the shit out of us. And the last round for both of us was actually fairly easy.
Yeah.
Comparatively. So the Space Stone, I have chosen A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, I don't know shit about A Wrinkle in Time.
You don't, and so I will briefly explain it. The main characters who you are replacing, their dad has been lost for a long time. Helpful old ladies who have time-space magic to teleport you through planes and planets, which is what the Space Gem does.
So they make wormholes.
They make wormholes, basically. They tesseracts, they call them.
Wait, they legitimately call them tesseracts?
Yeah. In the original book.
That's great.
Right?
That's great. That's perfect.
Right.
This round is excellent. I already love it.
And you have to find this scientist and save him from an evil megalomaniacal brain monster that controls thoughts and emotions. Could have worked for the Mind Stone on that one as well, but
I like Mass Effect 2, so
yeah.
What's next is the Reality Stone.
Next is the Reality Stone. This is the mean one. The Reality Stone does basically whatever it wants. And in Thor the Dark World, it is used to try and merge different realities into one place.
The idea is the Reality Stone does whatever it wants, and the other stones serve to shore up its powers and make them more permanent, usually.
Right. So, speaking of a lack of permanence and shit happening because... You're going Dark Souls 3.
Ooh, I like that. Because ultimately, it's a tough fight, but it's not outside the realms of either team. But the problem is going to be perseverance.
Yeah, it's a slog.
That's something I need to know. Obviously, you're replacing the unkindled one.
Yes.
Are you unkindled? Are you? Is your team? Do you have the ability to resurrect?
I think that's a call we should make once we get there.
Okay. All right. Next up is my round for the Soul Stone. And
this was the one I knew in advance.
Yeah, he knew this in advance because I wanted to pitch it past him and make sure he was all right with it. Because the Soul Stone in the movies has a very specific cost, which is a life for a life. I wanted to have a round that sort of echoed that, so I picked Dragon Age Origins. You replace the main party, including your player character and all the surrounding characters, from Dragon Age Origins right after the king is murdered. Right after Terran Logain gets on his bullshit, essentially.
But only one of your party members is a Grey Warden.
You can have more if you want, if you're okay with the extra conflict that would cause. But at the end of the day, unless you can pitch a way that they could get around it like Morrigan does, because Morrigan's not there, one of your party members has to go down. And that's the thing. One of the rules I don't know if we covered is if someone dies, they don't go to the next round.
Right.
So unless you can pitch a way of getting around it, you're going to the last round a man short. And the last round is the Power Stone. We made it the last round because I felt like it should require the greatest physical might to defeat. The most power. The highest power level, if you will. And in that spirit, I have decided that you will be replacing the Defenders of Earth and Goku in the Saiyan saga of Dragon Ball Z. Vegeta and Nappa are on their way to Earth. You have time to prepare, but they're coming, and you have to beat them.
That's a big one.
That one is hands down the biggest power requirement. Because although they're not, as big as the next things up in Dragon Ball Z, I tried to go with the highest level I felt like my team could get through, even with losses.
I just accidentally realized that I might be able to wig out of the Soul Stone.
I have a pitch myself.
Okay. So, let's get this shit started. Do you want to go first or shall I?
You know what? You.
Okay. All right. So, again, my team is Spawn, Commander Shepard, Wolverine, and Donatello, and myself for whatever reason. We have to fix the DeLorean in the 50s in Back to the Future.
Yep.
I've got Donatello.
He does machines.
He does machines so good.
Now, how do you avoid ripples in time that cause the problems? Because remember, it was real easy to make it so that George McFly doesn't bat so far out of his league as a person.
So, That was more like Marty's personal mission?
It was Marty's personal mission because Marty was in the 50s, and George McFly was about to get hit by a car.
That's true. That's true.
Look at your team and tell me if all of the people on your team, none of them would try and save a man from being hit by a car.
Yeah, one of them probably.
Which means now you're stuck trying to get George McFly swag enough to take out Marty's mom to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Okay.
And you have to get him successfully through that challenge.
Okay. Well, there's good news. 2 of my people can totally just hang out. And they are, in fact, badasses, and one of them is literally a teacher of teenagers.
That's true.
I feel...
Is he good at getting them their swag game, though?
Well, Commander Shepard's a woman, so she's going to be able to help George talk to women. I think that part's good.
Renegade Commander Shepard.
Yeah, I've seen the sultry scenes. She's good at what she does.
I suppose George McFly.
This is specifically a woman who romanced Garrus. She knows what she's about when she's dealing with nerds.
You know what? That's absolutely fair.
And Wolverine can be there as like a manly, counterpart to that.
Yeah. That's absolutely fair.
The only thing we do need to worry about is Wolverine around here at the time.
In this universe, well, technically you're not in the X-Men universe.
That's true. So he wouldn't be because he doesn't exist.
So you don't have to worry about a time paradox.
Cool. So no paradoxes. So I think we've got this. And at the end of the day, Wolverine can just orb spawn, can just scare the shit out of Biff, and that's not a fucking problem anymore.
Yeah, they're not Marty McFly. They're not another teenager who is scrappy but ultimately smaller than Biff. One of them's a demon man with demon magic, and the other one has knives for hands and regenerates. They can beat up the 50s meathead, I feel like, without even using his classic weakness, manure.
I might. Well, I've seen the movie. Like, Back to the Future is one of those movies I actually really know well, so I would be actually very helpful at this stage.
Yeah, I know all the shit. I would try my damnedest to prevent them from saving George McFly. Mm-hmm. But I know that Captain America's there, and Spider-Man's there, and Spider-Man has a chronic saving people problem.
Yes.
Especially when it's going to make his life harder and worse. But we're not on me yet. Or do you want to do each team?
I think back and forth is actually a good idea.
Yeah. For me, I feel like this actually isn't going to be a big deal for me.
No.
Because I have Spider-Man, and if anyone is good at somehow being a gigantic, ridiculous nerd boy and getting chicks way out of his league, it is Peter Parker. So... And Peter Parker in the Spider-Man games is actually a good teacher of younger teens for reasons I'm not going to get into.
Here's my question, though. Here's the difficulty on this for you specifically with that proposition.
And I know Harry Dresden has seen Back to the Future in a movie theater because he makes references to it, so he'll be able to help.
Sure. Okay. That's good, too. Because you're ultimately also fixing a time machine.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And Dumbledore knows the spell Reparo.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, Spider-Man's got to split his time between coaching George and also fixing the time machine.
Yeah, you know what? Harry Potter magic, not as bad as Dresden magic, but both kind of screw with technology, and a time machine's pretty finicky stuff. The time travel back is going to be a problem, just keeping it from blowing up. But I feel like we can manage it. Spider-Man might end up spending more time repairing, but in that case, Captain America can take over, and he's a suave dude.
Yeah, Captain America is basically the 50s ideal of what,
God, he would love it there.
Yeah. I honestly didn't think you'd have a problem with that, but I just wanted to ask questions based on what you gave.
No, absolutely. It's a fair cop. Look, at the end of the day, as sketchy as it might be, Dumbledore's from the Wizarding universe. He knows how to make, and would probably be alright with making, knowing that it ends well for both parties, a love potion. I'll get this done. To be young and to feel love's keen sting.
Okay, so that brings us, we both pass, I think, just fine.
Yep.
That brings us to round 2, the Mind Stone, which is Mass Effect 1.
Mass Effect 1.
Why don't you go first on this one?
Since it's your round, that makes sense. This one's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me, mostly because of Harry Dresden. Harry Dresden's magic fucks with technology, which means that he's gonna be good at combat. Like the Geth are fucked. He can
just wade through them and they spontaneously explode.
He can't get within 5 feet of a computer that's on our computer, without it blowing up and catching on fire. He's just gonna wade through the Geth like they're not there. The problem will be getting him from place to place.
Doesn't that go off if he's unconscious?
No.
Oh.
It is a field that he is emitting, like a bioelectricity sort of. It's called the person who studied it in the universe calls it a Murphyonic field. Essentially, in his personal radius, if something can go wrong with technology, eventually it will. So, now, having said that, there are ways around it in the universe. One is thorn manacles, which shut your magic off, and coincidentally that field. The problem is they hurt like a bitch. 2 is lots and lots of preventative maintenance, because it is if something can go wrong, it will, and advanced enough technology doesn't seem to have a problem. Because of some scenes in one of the books, there are people who are magic who are using computers. We don't know if they're mortals, though, and it's only mortal magic that causes the problem. It's a little vague. But we do know one specific mortal person who has a wizard who lives in their house and a TV. They just do lots and lots of preventative maintenance. So it would be a cost increase, and he's going to have to be deployed separately in combat from everybody else. From all the Mass Effect people. Like, Cap's fine. Spider-Man and Harry can't really fight too close together. Dumbledore stuff will wonk out mortal technology, but not nearly as badly, so he can fight with everybody else. But Dresden's going to have to be deployed kind of separately from all the Mass Effect forces. The Geth are fucked, but he's going to have some personal issues.
Honestly, and I don't know if helping is encouraged. I think your solutions are good enough, but also remember that they contained Jack for a while.
Yeah. And we don't know what kind of shielding technology Mass Effect has. We don't know what kind of, if they have biotics, who are kind of space magic, and Ezo, which is basically just does whatever the fuck it wants. So it's possible this is a problem fixable just by having him wear some specific Ezo bracelets that he turns on to damp his magic when he's not using it.
I like the idea of an Ezo skin-tight suit.
Yeah.
Like maybe neon green, just to really mess with Harry's day.
I mean, it makes his life sadder and worse, so it fits his author's intent. But I feel like it's a not unovercomable problem. The rest of it's easy. Dumbledore's a lifelong politician who's incredibly skilled at convincing people to do what he wants.
Captain America's a soldier.
Captain America's a soldier, and an incredibly inspiring orator. He slots into the Commander Shepard role. Spider-Man does machines. In as much as Donatello was, he's really my Donatello on this team.
Yeah.
He's good at technology, he's good at figuring things out, and genuinely, the Geth are fucked. Harry Dresden can take out a street lamp at 40 paces with a minor effort, the kind of effort you use to flip a light switch. Those things they're just boned.
So do you think, because this is an option in the game, do you think your team is able to save Saren, or do they bother?
Yeah, Dumbledore's on this team. Of course they bother.
Okay.
Dumbledore tried to save Voldemort. Literally Voldemort.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know that they succeed, but they certainly try.
Cool.
Thankfully, succeeding at that is not part of the goal, is not ultimately the goal of the challenge.
So, my Shepherd is probably got this in hand, so long as the rest of the team aren't nincompoops.
And you have not perfect replacements for everyone else on the team. You're missing a lot of tech expertise. But you've got
I've
Donatello.
got Donatello, yeah. So I've got...
It'll take him some time to...
I've got a Tali and Donatello, and I've got a Rex and Wolverine.
It'll take him some time to get conversant in the local technology.
Sure, yeah, that's true.
But I feel like you guys got this.
Yeah, I don't really feel there's much to say about this. And I thank you for the buy, my friend.
It would be... I mean, it would be fun to watch, certainly.
Yeah, it would be. Delightfully, a couple of the problems that happen in Mass Effect by virtue of switching out the team don't occur.
Yeah.
So, all right, well...
Other problems presumably occur in their place.
Certainly. You have a lot more than I do. But number 3, round 3, is the Space Stone, A Wrinkle in Time. I'll go first because you're not as familiar with the property.
I'm very much not.
So, especially with the help of Mrs. Who and Mrs. What's It, and I forget the names exactly, but they're definitely fine in getting where they need to be.
The question becomes, can they accomplish what they need to accomplish?
Yes, because there's a bit of a trick to it. First of all, the entity that's responsible for all of this is sort of an emissary of order and appeals to the autist in all of us. And that's how the brainwashing happens. So...
I'm not going to do too well this round.
there might be some rough stuff with Donatello. The final big conflict, I think they wouldn't have a problem finding the scientist. I think, like, convincing him to come home might be rough, but, you know, in the storybook it was a little girl, and instead we have 4 full-grown badasses who would just carry him out.
Yeah, she has to be like, come on, you know, convince, because ultimately she can't just, I'm Spawn, knock him out and drag him home.
If we lose Donatello, however, it gets difficult. Because the only way to break the mind control is with profound affection. Emotions defeating logic, in that sense. And
Okay.
I don't know that any of my people, if we lose a Donatello to the mind control,
Are nice enough people, ultimately?
care enough about him, or would even consider that. I am pretty sure that 3 of them would try to fight the brain. And I don't know that that would help.
That's absolutely fair.
It's entirely possible Donatello, being a teenager and not fully fucking autistic, would be able to not...
You're
get
not my
mind
real
control.
dad, his way out of the problem.
Before it was actually a problem. But, I'm going to leave that up to you. What do you think about that?
I don't feel like ultimately you're going to lose Donatello because at the end of the day, he's a Ninja Turtle from late Archie Comics. He's been to Dimension X by now.
Oh, yeah, several times.
He's used to wacky space bullshit trying to take over his brain.
Sure.
He's gonna have some plans in place for that. He's not Batman, but he has Batman energy in most versions of the Ninja Turtles.
And Archie Comics are a lot more chill. The Turtles don't really lose their own sense of self a lot, so because they're very spiritual. So, all right. What about your team?
This is a buy round for me. This
Yeah?
is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
One, they're not going to have a problem getting there for the same reason you mentioned. 2, I have Dumbledore. Yeah, go ahead and have a mind fight with Albus Dumbledore. See how that works out for you. Tell me how you do. Harry Dresden successfully kicked the ass in a mental arm wrestling competition of a literal elder god.
Oh, okay, that's good, yeah.
Well, one of their emissaries, but effectively the same thing. You've met the character in D&D.
Oh, cool.
He punched Sharkface's lights out mentally.
I believe I blew him up.
Yeah. Captain America is
He's fine.
perseverance, and he's convincing. Spider-Man might have some issues, especially PS4 Spider-Man, who has some very strong issues about being too attached to making sure everything's okay. At least my version, because I did all the side quests. But I feel like Dumbledore and Captain America can get him back.
Well, and one of the things
I'm screwed, but I got nice people who'll help me.
in that sense, one of the things you mentioned is that your team, other than Dumbledore and Harry Dresden, would probably get along pretty well because
They all look up to each other, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, Captain America... Spider-Man looks up deeply to Captain America. Harry Dresden looks up deeply to Spider-Man. He literally arranges his life essentially around the Tao of Peter Parker. With great power comes great responsibility. But and Dumbledore is most of these guys are going to get along really well together.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like the brainwashing is going to be a problem for most of them, except maybe Peter and myself. But ultimately, I just don't feel like this is going to be a hard round for them.
No, I don't really think so. It was kind of soft pitch, but I thought it fit the theming. Really
no, it absolutely fits the theming incredibly well. It's just I happened to pick a bunch of really empathetic motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. Even Dresden is a really empathetic person. He really feels for people. That's one of the reasons he does what he does. He's trying to be the good guy.
Whereas my problems, specifically for brainwashing me, are more ADHD based. So, God, they'd have a hard time.
Yeah.
All right, focus. Do your multiplication tables. No. Okay, 1 times 1 is sand. Ooh, pretty.
Whereas I'm genuinely a little fucked, but I believe in Dumbledore and Captain America, and ultimately Dresden will just knock me out and carry me home. Get to the next round. Oh, I'm cured of the mind control. Great.
Okay. Well, now we hit into the heavy hitters.
This is where shit gets a little real.
A little real.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think, and that's why I was told to save it, because I feel like we're going to discuss a lot about the round itself. With the Reality Stone, Dark Souls 3, do you think your team need to be fucking...
Well, that's the thing. You're looking at that as a buff. I don't think it is. Because part of Dark Souls isn't about like defeating the bad guys. It's about perseverance.
Sure.
So the question becomes, it isn't like, do they need the handicap of being able to resurrect? It's if you make them able to resurrect, do they eventually go hollow, essentially?
It's not as much of a problem
in 3 as it is in 1.
Basically, they have to meet the nice stone-backed devil man and not shake his hand. Because that's the only way you go hollow in that game. Well,
that's game mechanics and story.
I think you might be able to... Well, because you're enkindled, or unkindled. You are ash. You are fire. You are a ghost, basically.
So, essentially, you know what I think it is? I feel like this is a good compromise. They start off not having it, and if any one of them dies, they get it, but they've died, so they don't go on to the next round.
All right, that's fair.
So, with that in mind, do you think any of us lose anybody?
Well...
I don't feel like you lose Wolverine. There's just nothing in that universe.
No, motherfucker regenerates. He's fine.
There's nothing in that universe that can get through adamantium.
He regenerates and dodge rolls.
Yeah. Like, there's just nothing in that universe that's going to get through adamantium. Full stop.
I honestly think I'm fine. I'm iffy, but I can just stay at the shrine.
Yeah, I'm going to be a support class. I'm going to hang out with the blind lady.
Yeah, I will stay there. They can come back, and they'll be like, all right, what do we do next? And I'll be like, this, and this.
Yeah, it's you go here, and then you go here. Don't touch the thing. When you see the thing, don't touch the thing. I'll be their walkthrough. But ultimately, I have 2 very powerful wizards against one of whom has a problem. Both of whom wouldn't kill, people, but you don't fight a wealth of people.
Yeah, no. And Dumbledore's hacks.
Dumbledore's hacks good. One of them has Mjolnir and all the might of Thor, per Odin, the worst father in the universe's inscriptions. One of them is literally Spider-Man. So I feel like this isn't and a lot of the game's survivability relies on mobility.
Yeah, that's true.
So 3 of them are incredibly mobile: teleportation, flight, and spider swinging. And one of them, honestly, Harry's probably the weakest link in terms of sheer combat capability. But that dude can throw out some heavy punches.
So
and
here's
by
a
that
question.
point in the series, he kind of has super strength. So I don't feel like I lose anybody so long as I stay in the shrine.
Here's a question. Do you think they kindle the fire?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, dude. Captain America, Dumbledore, Harry Dresden, they're all about keeping the universe going.
Okay.
And I'm not going to stop them.
Knowing my Commander Shepard, I think she would be more than happy to become the fire. But that would involve her dying first, so I don't know if she'd get that option.
That's actually a question. Can they? Without one of them dying?
If they died and had the opportunities and so on and so forth, as we have established, yeah, they could do it that way. But I think they'd have to die first because they need the option to become hollow.
But with one of them dying, without one of them dying, without losing anybody, what happens at the end of the game?
Well, they either... yeah, that's true. Well, they're absorbing souls, so... You know, even if they don't... They're going to get soul stones regardless. They could probably use those or give them to somebody or...
Well, I've got 2 wizards. One of whom literally has access to an ability called Soulfire.
Sure.
Like, Harry Dresden actually does use Soulfire in his spells. So I feel like he's got it.
Yeah,
They've got to be similar.
One of them might have to become enkindled. That's interesting. There's some argument that Spawn could do something similar.
Yeah, he's an undead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I suppose he is already undead, isn't he?
He's already undead. He could just become enkindled for this run without you losing him.
Yeah. True.
But would he have to stay?
Not necessarily.
Well, there you go.
I mean, you have the option to just fucking walk away at the end.
Well, there you go. Yeah, light the fire and fuck off, right?
Light the fire, fuck off, and become the fire. Become the fire is the hard one. Well, complicated one.
Oh, yeah, lighting the fire doesn't even require you to stick around.
I don't think so, no. Well, I've never lit the fire, so...
So, yeah, no, I don't... This is a hard run. This is the run where I think this is a round where we might lose someone. Where you could make a very genuine argument that we would lose someone, like, incidentally during a boss fight. Because some of those boss fights are vicious and almost require multiple runs to understand.
Except that when you summon help, they become a lot easier. And you start with help.
Yeah, you start with a squad of 4.
And people who know how the bosses work.
Squad of 4 with just straight up hacks abilities.
Yeah. I think I have a little harder time in actually fighting people. I think especially between Spider-Man running, dodgy interference and stuff, Cap tanking, and the other 2 doing crazy shit from the back line. Mm-hmm. I think you guys are solid. Wolverine could tank, I guess. I have more of a melee DPS in Donnie.
And remember, Spawn has limited magic power, but he can use it all every round, and then he just gets it back when he goes to the next round.
Yeah, so there's certain bosses that if they were too tough, he could just turn off their bullshit or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Reality Stone, I think, if you guys in the comments, if you think one of our characters wouldn't make it through...
Beyond us, we know that. We're staying in the shrine.
That's why we're in the fucking shrine. If you think we wouldn't make it through, let us know, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the time of potential sacrifice.
Yeah. The Soul Stone. Dragon Age Origins. I want to get this right out front. I don't feel like the actual events of Dragon Age Origins up to defeating the Archdemon are a huge impediment to either of our teams.
No.
They're all way too good at fighting for the Darkspawn to be a real problem. If the abilities shown by, like, the lowest tier warrior warden are enough to defeat it, then, like, Wolverine and Spider-Man could handle this problem on their own. But I don't feel like the political end's a huge issue either. The problem comes in, ultimately, much like the Soul Stone, getting there isn't the hard part. It's the choice. They get told by Riordan, a Grey Warden has to sacrifice himself. And there's only one Grey Warden there, and Riordan dies in a cutscene in the game, but if one of the members of your team can save him, maybe, there's another Grey Warden around, and that guy could do it.
Sure.
And all of the members of your team, even Donatello, are mercenary enough to definitely let him.
Here's the thing. Do we get to pick who's the Grey Warden?
Yeah.
I have a loophole.
Lay out your loophole in front of me.
Spawn doesn't die forever when he dies. You have to behead him specifically. Otherwise, he comes back.
Now, through what mechanism does that happen?
Malbolgia goes, and back you go.
I see, and that's presumably with Spawn's soul, yes?
Possibly, probably, yeah.
Okay, the reason that a Grey Warden defeats an Archdemon is that when an Archdemon is killed, its soul goes into the nearest Darkspawn. Grey Wardens, being tainted with Darkspawn blood, are close enough that the soul goes into the Grey Warden, where there it meets and basically has a matter-antimatter reaction with the soul in the Grey Warden, and both are destroyed.
So,
what Morrigan does in the game is she takes that soul and redirects it into her uterus, presumably.
I mean, in that sense. Well, like, Spawn is also kind of Legion. There's a bunch of souls in there. That's
the source of his power, yeah?
Yeah.
So ultimately you think, so long as he hoards his energy for the final conflict, he might have enough demonic power to just
smother the motherfucker.
Smite the soul right out.
And maybe survive it in that sense, and if not, make an even tradesies and then come back later.
I'm iffy on it. I will also pitch you a loophole.
Okay. And
then we can decide together whether we can mutually agree on the loopholes or whether we need to cut a squad member.
Sure.
Loophole. The loophole first is who. It kind of depends on who decides who's a Grey Warden. Presumably, we're not doing this by vote.
I mean, Sri Sumbaji would vote for Sri Sumbaji on your team.
Yes, exactly.
Except maybe you.
So, because all of my dudes are very much down for heroic sacrifice.
Sure.
So any of them will take the hit. That's not going to stop them, even a little bit. They'll be happy to do it, to be honest, for the most part. My first loophole relies on me getting to be the one who picks who's the Grey Warden. And I pick me.
Okay.
Because then none of those motherfuckers get to heroically sacrifice themselves, so the two wizards on the team have a very strong incentive to figure out a way to prevent me from having to do it.
And what is Morrigan but a really good specific wizard?
Exactly.
That's not bad thinking.
They have a very, very big incentive to study the local magic and figure out a way to make it so that I don't have to die.
I feel if you had chosen MCU Peter Parker, that would also have been an acceptable alternative for the wizards to go, no. He is just young boy.
I'm just a guy. I'm like a 30-year-old dude. That, and I would do, at the end of the day, if they can't, I'll do it. But I'm betting Dumbledore can figure it out. He figured out Horcruxes. What is an archdemon but a Horcrux, really? That's my loophole. And honestly, if it was MCU Peter Parker, he doesn't want to go. He doesn't feel so good.
Yeah.
But PS4 Peter Parker would do it.
And they wouldn't try too hard to stop him.
But they'd try, but they'd respect the nobility.
Whereas you have the sass to go, no, fuck you, you two are wizards, fix this.
I'll do it if I have to, but come on, guys.
But also at the same time, if it fails, you don't lose out on an important part.
The other loophole that we both might have available to us is that we both have meta-knowledge of the game.
Yes.
We both know what the deal with the Grey Warden is. So
though we lack Morrigan, fucking
Flemeth is still there.
Yes.
And Mythol might be very interested in this. And I know exactly who Flemeth is, and I will start busting out the truth bombs to get her to help.
That's very clever. Yeah, I have to say that's a good workaround of the sacrifice of the Soulstone.
I feel like there's two versions here. There's the version where we have to go through with the sacrifice. The scenario requires it because it's the Soul Stone. To go through a soul for a soul, one of us has to die. In that scenario, who do you pick?
if I have to lose somebody,
Yeah.
Going into the next round,
Yeah.
me,
Same.
like, especially because my knowledge isn't going to help here.
My knowledge would kind of help, but not in anything useful. Go beat up those guys. They're very strong. Congratulations. That's the extent of the way my knowledge helps. If I have to sacrifice someone, it's going to be me. If I have to. I feel like there's workarounds, so I'm going to continue discussing the next round as if there is workarounds. But if not, I'll take the hit because ultimately, if I've met these guys and gone through all these scenarios with them, I'm going to regard them as real people. And ultimately, I'm way less important to the continuation of a universe than any of them. Except maybe Dumbledore. But I know what's coming next because I have meta knowledge and I know they are going to have a hard fucking time without him, so...
Yeah, same. And you know me, I'm prone to heroic sacrifice a bit myself, so...
I'm not. I'm selfish, but at the end of the day, if I've grown this close to these people, I'm prone to sacrificing a lot for my friends. Not so much to be a hero.
Okay, well, number 6 is Power. The Saiyan Saga of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, you don't know what the fuck this is.
It's probably the one I'm the most familiar with.
Ultimately, the particulars of import are this. 2 Saiyans are coming to Earth for the Dragon Balls. Your team replaces the Earth Defenders and Goku, who is dead, and in this scenario, not coming back, at least until this is done. He's dead for previous reasons. He died fighting the last guy.
Right.
Your job is to defend the Earth, prevent it from being destroyed, which they can do, and stop them from collecting all the Dragon Balls and getting their wish for immortality. However you manage to do that.
Okay.
Now, for my team, this is where Dumbledore hacks come into play a lot.
I mean, Dumbledore is the plan, and Captain America is the execution. Because
he has Mjolnir and the powers of Thor. And I submit that Thor, it is strong, Thor's normal strength is at least as powerful as Saiyan-era DBZ characters. Saiyan Saga-era DBZ characters. Obviously, the DBZ characters get a lot more powerful, but that's why I picked that saga. That's about where we're talking. To give you an idea of what they're physically capable of.
I'm medium aware.
Imagine Vegeta Vegeta and Nappa are about Thanos tier.
Right.
Dumbledore and Harry Dresden is a great wizard for his universe, but ultimately he is batting way out of his weight class in this fight. He can do that. He's done it a lot. He cheats. But I feel like he and Spider-Man are pretty well out of their weight class. Cap would be too if he wasn't wielding a thing which evens the odds. Dumbledore might be able to 1v2 them, depending on how well magic works on Saiyans, and from what we've seen in the Dragon Ball Z universe, perfectly well. Just fine, thanks. The problem is how fast Dragon Ball Z warriors are. They're absurdly fast. So the plan becomes Dresden, Captain America, and Spider-Man exist to keep the 2 Saiyans and their Cybermen off Dumbledore for long enough for him to pull some Dumbledore bullshit.
I don't think I have this one.
You don't?
No. I think Commander Shepard could probably work out finding everything. Commander Shepard is good at finding things.
Yes.
Across a ridiculously larger,
Captain America is traditionally bad at preventing Thanos-tier dudes from gathering up a bunch of things.
Right, but this is specifically the Captain America that succeeded.
That specifically succeeded, yeah. He's got a mixed bag record.
I just don't think my other 3 guys could fend them off long enough to... One Ninja Turtle is not going to beat...
Thanos?
A Thanos, yeah, no. Even when combined...
A Thanos with energy blasts?
With Wolverine. And, Spawn will work for a minute.
I don't know that. I think I don't think Wolverine would get. I don't think they could kill it.
But I don't know that they could stop it. He could stop them.
No, that's the thing, is I don't think he's strong enough to physically contend with them.
And even if Wolverine and Spawn did their damnedest the whole time to try and delay them until Shepard figured out where the Dragon Balls are and used her wish to send them into a Reaper, thus solving two problems of hers. I don't think they could do it for long enough. I just don't think they could hold them off for long enough.
Well, that's not the only thing they have to do. They know they're coming.
Sure.
They know they're collecting the Dragon Balls. I'm a little sketchy as to whether or not the Dragon Balls were available because they scattered to the ends of the earth.
Right.
But they were available when the Saiyans got there because they had to stop them. If your Shepard is good enough to collect the Dragon Balls, do you think they could? Because they have some time to prepare. They had time in Dragon Ball Z to train for the Saiyans to get there. Do you think she could maybe gather up the Dragon Balls with help from the rest quick enough to make a wish and just wish them out of existence?
I mean, so, I don't think that, as I said earlier, your characters would have a hard time with Dark Souls 3.
Not at the end of the day, no. They're all really good at combat except me, and I'm staying in the shrine.
But I would love to watch it happen. And sort of a reverse of that, I don't think my team has the power, maybe just enough under that specific scenario, to execute that plan. But either way, I'd love to watch them try.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think, at the end of the day, honestly, I could see your team, everyone except Shepard ends up dead.
Yeah.
The rest of them die fighting retreat to give Shepard enough time to find the Dragon Balls and win the game.
Yeah.
I could see around for that. In my team, I'm relatively certain. I know I'll make it. If I'm within a fucking light year of that fight, Nappa's gonna kill me for a goof at some point. He's gonna literally do it for the lulz. I know I'm not making it. I have a real problem thinking Dresden and Spider-Man make it out. But if anyone's on my team going down, the three of us and then Cap and Dumbledore finish him off.
What constitutes worthiness to go train under King Kai?
Getting there. And
don't I have to die first?
You do have to be dead. Well, to get to that realm. Well, not really, but by the rules in the series, at that point, you kind of have to be dead.
Okay. How much time do we have?
Enough time that Goku was able to go the entirety of Snake Way, which is very long, which was like a months-long journey, I believe, and train under King Kai. You also have to be a strong enough warrior that King Kai gives a shit about you.
Well, not me specifically, but I've got some dudes.
You think one of them might be willing? Spawn. It's literally in the same place. It's in the same overdimension as their universe's version of Hell.
So, yeah, first time Spawn dies, he could just be like, who's this blue guy? And then, I mean, it gives me a little bit more of an edge, but I don't.
Do you think Spawn might take Goku's place running down Snake Way and coming
guess.
in for the last minute save against Vegeta?
Sounds like a 90s kid's wet dream.
God, don't it just?
But at the end of the day, regardless of the outcome, given the rules of our little exchange here, I think you take the victory for the better team.
I had the higher power level team. That's not a surprise.
Well, and I think just specific choices you made, because, okay, in a contest of whose team could kick whose ass, I think it's hard to say.
It basically depends on how hard Spawn's willing to go that day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because Spawn is more hacks than Dumbledore, but he's on a sliding scale.
Sure.
It's basically how much is he willing to invest in this fight.
If
he's willing to invest enough, that's about it, son.
We also have 2 trained assassins, 3 trained assassins, 4 trained assassins.
4 trained assassins against an old man what headmaster's a school. You're gonna have a problem killing Dresden.
We'll have a problem killing Dresden. We'll have a problem killing Cap. I don't think the others are an issue.
Yeah, I'm certainly not. Spider-Man has spider sense.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man kicks Wolverine's ass. That's established comics canon.
That's just the one Wolverine, though. What if he had to fight Wolverine and a pissed-off Doctor Strange? But that's
Spawn's broken, but he's not Comics Doctor
no, he's
Strange
not Doctor
broken.
Strange, Jesus. But
I would never use Comics Doctor Strange unless I use like the modern.
Unless I got Doctor Who or something.
Unless I use the modern incarnation, but like old 70s or Comics Doctor Strange, you just win. You just win. He's essentially God.
How did you win today, Doctor Strange? I used the Scrand of Scranton.
Okay. But yeah, you know what? I'm not going to argue that. There is a scenario where I would argue against my own win, but I don't feel like that's it. I feel like I just happened to pick a good set this time.
Yeah, I think it just really suited uniquely all of the challenges. We each had our stumbling blocks, and there's some loopholes in there, but...
The Soulstone loophole is something I expected when I picked a Soulstone thing, because we're both that kind of person. And with meta-knowledge, that problem is not insurmountable.
No.
If Morrigan, a child who was raised in the woods, can do it... Albus Dumbledore, one of the foremost minds of his generation, and noted cheater of fate and breaker of deals Harry Dresden, would manage it if they had enough incentive to do so.
Right. But I guess that's it. You get a free resurrect token.
Do I have to use it next round, or can I keep it?
No, you can keep that until you decide you want to bring back one of the guys you've used.
Then I will keep it for now. I'm not going to call my shot Bambino style.
All right. So, yeah, this is going to be a regular thing. We kind of started this because we wanted a breather between D&D stuff here in the year of D&D. We are going to be moving on to classes next. But this was something that both just really tickled our fancies. And... we wanted to share these ideas with you guys, and I'm so excited that we finally get to record these. These are now our Dead Week podcasts where nothing more important is happening, and that's awesome.
Yeah, because they're fun, and they're a fun conversation, and the pre-conversation we have about picking teams and stuff is almost as fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Two Nerds podcast.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it.